Hello and welcome to Breakfast for Pancakes. I'm your host, PK Sullivan. Last week I guided you on the journey to your perfect grilled cheese. This week it's all about tomato soup. But first, Patreon is live. You can go support me on Patreon. The link for that will be below in the show notes, but it is patreon.com/breakfastforpancakes. Supporting me on Patreon really would make the difference of letting me continue to put out these videos and make content for you. At $10 a month, you can actually help decide what videos get shot. There's going to be a monthly poll for patrons of that tier or higher to vote on a video for the next month. The $50 a month level lets you pick a recipe that I will make on the air once every 6 months. If you value what I do here, it would be greatly appreciated if you could support me. Back to our regularly scheduled episode. Just like everybody, I grew up having tomato soup. Mostly it was the canned stuff. I have a recipe that is 1,000 times more delicious. Even if it takes a little bit longer, the effort really is worth it. Tomato soup is an excellent opportunity to use your pressure cooker. I have an Instant Pot and it's a wonderful addition to my kitchen toolkit. It lets me cook recipes that normally would take a very long time actually pretty quickly. In this case, we're going to be pressure cooking the tomato soup for 12 minutes. That replaces 90 minutes of simmering on the stove top. What makes this different from the canned stuff is we start with a good base of aromatics. Aromatics are ingredients that punch up the flavors, sort of live in the background flavors. If you think about making tomato sauce, you use onions, but tomato sauce doesn't taste like onions. But if you didn't have the onions there, the tomato sauce wouldn't taste right. There's not enough going on. That's what the aromatics are for. In this case, we're using onions and fennel. And then we spice it up, literally. I like to use paprika, cumin seed, and fennel seed. We're going to toast the seeds so that they release their oils and really release their flavors. Of course, if you wanted to spice up your tomato soup even further, you could add some red pepper flakes, some chili de arbol, or even some gochujang. And with that, let's get right into it. Ingredients: 60 mils olive oil, 5 mils fennel seed, 5 mils cumin seed, 600 grams of onions shaved, 600 grams fennel bulb shaved, kosher salt, 10 mils paprika, fresh cracked black pepper, 2 800-gram cans crushed tomatoes, 45 mils butter, and sugar. Set your pressure cooker to sauté function at high heat and let it come up to temperature. Add the oil and let it heat up until it shimmers. Add your fennel seed and cumin seed, stirring constantly until fragrant, about 30 seconds. Add the shaved fennel and onions and stir to coat with oil and break up the onion rings. You want to make sure that everything is evenly coated and nothing sticks to the bottom of the pan. Add a pinch of salt and then continue to sauté until the onions and fennel have reduced. What we're doing by cooking down the onions and fennel here is concentrating their flavor. We're driving moisture out of the vegetables and leaving behind the flavorful compounds. Because the Instant Pot is so narrow and tall relative to the amount of food we put in it, we won't actually develop much browning. It's trapping too much steam and moisture in, which is fine. We don't need to brown the onions. We just need to cook them down so that when we blend the soup later, they just break apart and become part of the background flavor rather than chunks in our soup. Once your onions and fennel have been cooked down, add your paprika and a good bit of fresh black pepper. Stir to combine. You'll notice that with the addition of the paprika, things tend to clump. This is why we didn't add paprika earlier. It acts as a thickener in hot oil. Once everything is evenly mixed, add your tomatoes. Rinse out the cans using 1 cup of water to collect any remaining bits, and then stir to combine. Be sure to scrape out the bottom of the pot. Make sure nothing is sticking. Anything stuck to the bottom of the pot will burn and may trip safety features that prevent it from pressure cooking with burnt food. Set your pressure cooker to high pressure for 12 minutes. I let my Instant Pot do a natural release for 15 minutes before I release pressure manually. Even then, the soup is still boiling. Use an immersion blender to blend the soup into a fine consistency. This will take several minutes. About halfway through, add your butter and continue blending. The butter is the only non-vegan ingredient, so if you want to make a vegan version of this recipe, substitute something for that. Vegan margarine would probably work. The butter adds a richness to the soup that improves the mouthfeel. Look for that with your substitute fat. Time for a taste test. You're checking for 2 things. If the soup tastes flat or generally bland, add salt to bring up the flavors. If it tastes tinny or too acidic, add some sugar. The salt will amplify all the flavors while the sugar will tamp down the acid and rein in any metallic flavors. My soup needed a little bit of both. Be sure to taste again and adjust if needed. Oh, that's good. All right, our tomato soup is done. I have a grilled cheese here, and it's time to garnish and serve. I like my tomato soup to be a little spicy, have a little kick, so I'm going to add a bit of habanero hot sauce. If you want it to be a creamier soup, something more approaching a bisque, you could stir in some heavy cream or sour cream. Then I like to garnish with just a fun little Parmesan crisp as a sort of crouton. All right, let's stir this together. The soup has like that perfect consistency where you can tell it has little bits of things, but you can't really see them. The mouthful is really nice. It's very calming. It fills your mouth and coats your tongue. It's a very soothing soup that's just cozy. Cozy is a good word for it. You don't taste the onion, you don't taste the fennel, but it's not just tomato. There are layers of flavor built up in here. You get a little bit of the fennel seed, but the cumin in there gives it that earthy note that sort of brings it back down and evens everything out. That kick, that heat from the habanero really sets it off. Last week I found out the Gruyere I have melts super, super nicely. So this week I used that as my melting cheese. I used a nice sharp cheddar for my aged flavorful cheese. There's a good deal of Parmesan in there. I added some deli-style mustard and confit garlic. Oh wow, this might be one of the best grilled cheese I've ever made. And the tomato soup is perfect with it. So there you have it. That's how you make tomato soup at home using your Instant Pot. You can do this recipe on the stovetop. Add a bit more water, probably a cup to a cup and a half more water, and you're going to have to simmer it for a long time, probably 90 minutes to 2 hours. I'm stirring every 10-15 minutes in order to really break down the onions and fennel and let them do their work and go through the chemical reactions that they do. It takes a lot of time on the stovetop compared to a small amount of time with heat and pressure in an Instant Pot. This week's shout out goes to Chicago Market. It is a food co-op here in Chicago that is going to be opening up their physical location in about a year or so. My wife and I have been members of the co-op for about 5 or 6 years. We really believe in it, and we can't wait to have the store open so that we can go buy locally sourced, fresh produce and sustainable meats from the Chicago area so that we can really put our money where our mouth is as far as supporting people who are growing food in a sustainable way for a better future. Please like and subscribe. It really helps me out as a new content creator. Thank you, and have a nice day.